the question also says, has Bhante had much experience himself of this practice? I'm afraid Bhante has to confess that in his earlier days he didn't. In fact, I found the state of affairs in the East among bhikkhus very unsatisfactory in this respect. As I think people know, I've recently been working again on my memoirs, and I was reading through an earlier chapter just the other day, and this chapter describes my experiences in Nepal when I visited that country in 1951, I think it was, into 51, just after the democratic revolution. And there were a lot of monks gathered together because we'd gone there, taking with us from Calcutta the relics of Sariputra and Modgalyayan. And there was a very big reception given to those relics by the Buddhists of mainly Kathmandu. And a lot of bhikkhus from various countries had gathered together. There were bhikkhus from Nepal itself, there were bhikkhus from India, bhikkhus from Burma, bhikkhus from Sri Lanka, and several other countries, mainly Theravada countries. So some of the Nepalese bhikkhus thought it would be a good idea to have some ordination ceremonies, that is, a bhikkhu ordination ceremonies of Nepalese shramaneras or novices. So it was agreed that there should be these ordination ceremonies and that all the visiting bhikkhus should take part, among them being myself. Now you may or you may not know that before something like a bhikkhu ordination, bhikkhus have to confess. And so this is what happened. And I was very interested to see this because I hadn't had the opportunity of confessing in this way before. I'd been ordained myself as a bhikkhu only about 1 year, I think, at that time. So what happened was this: before the ordinations were given, all the bhikkhus present split up into twos, and squatted down on the floor facing each other. So I was under the impression, I was very naive in those days, I'm afraid, I was under the impression that we would then just bethink ourselves of, well, what mistakes or offences we'd committed, and then would just actually state them to the bhikkhu opposite and take it in turns in that way. But oh no, not a word of it. It was quite different. Apparently there was a Pali formula. So the bhikkhu squatting opposite me, who was quite experienced, rattled off this formula, and then he said to me, well, no, you've got to repeat it. I didn't know it at that time, so he said, well, just repeat it after me. So I repeated it after him, and he said, that's it. So it seemed that confession had become a complete formality. You just squatted down before an important ceremony, and you just let fly at each other with these Pali formulae. And here was before the ceremony, I was thinking, it's a whole year since I've been ordained, and what have I done, and what should I not have done? I was trying to make a mental list and confess it all. I wasn't given that opportunity, and I never had that opportunity as a bhikkhu the whole time, because it had all become so much of a formality. And later on, of course, when I came to have various Tibetan teachers, especially Dharata Rinpoche, well then of course outside any formal situation I had the opportunity of disburdening myself of anything that I felt I ought to disburden myself of. But I'm afraid, broadly speaking, in the East, the practice of confession, especially among bhikkhus, has become very much a formality. But I do believe that it's an integral part of spiritual life, and that if one doesn't have the opportunity to confess, then one is missing out, on something of great importance. So it's not so much that you should feel that you have to confess. It's not quite as it is, say, in the Catholic Church, where you remain perhaps in a state of mortal or at least venial sin, so long as you haven't confessed to a priest and been properly absolved. In Buddhism, the significance is more psychological and spiritual. You confess because, well, in the first place, you want to be quite open with other people. You don't want to be communicating with them or relating to them on, as it were, false pretenses. You want to have a free and open flow of communication. And you want to give others the opportunity of really seeing you as you are. And perhaps you want some help and support in overcoming certain negative tendencies and practices and habits within yourself. And you can only get that help if you're completely open with other people, your close spiritual friends, about what it is that you've done or not done, especially those things that you don't feel particularly happy about. So confession represents a really great spiritual opportunity, and I'm glad that within the FWBO the practice of new confession is becoming much more widespread and more deeply felt, one might say.